Hi, I'm Dom Griffin, I'm a film critic, and you're watching the Armchair Auteur. This is an ongoing video series I do where we talk about new movies, old movies, screenplay analysis, television series reviews, that sort of thing. So if you like movies and you like movie-adjacent popular culture and you like to see somebody pick those things apart, you are in the right place and you should consider subscribing. Today I'm reviewing The French Dispatch, the new film from director Wes Anderson that was supposed to come out like in 2020, mid-2020, before COVID stuff happened, is continuing to happen. But the movie finally has an actual theatrical release through Searchlight Pictures, which used to be Fox Searchlight, but now Disney owns it, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, the movie is coming out. It is out in theaters by the time you see this, maybe a day or two after you see this, I'm not sure. It's a good movie, and I think people should see it. I know I shouldn't just like front load the video with a thumbs up before I get into the analysis or whatever, but I'm just gonna be honest. I think the movie's really cool, and I think people should see it. I've been a Wes Anderson fan for ages, even long before his name became shorthand for having a certain kind of hipster taste in movies. I think Rushmore is fantastic. I think The Royal Tenenbaums is a severely underrated film. I like The Life Aquatic for the most part. But somewhere around the Darjeeling Limited, I felt bored with what he was doing. I felt sort of underwhelmed by his necessity to continue doing the same stylistic thing over and over again, expecting marginally different results, and I just wasn't into it anymore. But then somewhere around Moonrise Kingdom, I was like, oh, okay, I see what's happening. The big thing that happened with Moonrise for me, and what made it sort of like a revitalized time in Wes Anderson's career, was he was working with a bunch of actors who hadn't been a part of like the Wes Anderson company of collaborators. People like Bruce Willis, people like Ed Norton, and it felt like you were watching him be like kind of reborn in a way, and I was so drawn to the film. Like, it's a really fun movie. I feel like it's really, really underrated, and I realized that it feels like a turning point where Wes Anderson figured out how he could continue to like iterate on his usual stuff and all his little pet themes and all his like pet stylistic tics, but by working with new collaborators and bringing them into his world, it creates this sort of feedback loop where it feels like every new person that joins the Wes Anderson world strengthens it and livens it up and makes it feel like a new place. So by the time you get to something like The Grand Budapest Hotel, it's a movie that to me felt like the platonic peak of what a Wes Anderson movie could be. Like, that movie is astonishing to me. It's pretty perfect. I love it so much. I sort of thought maybe that was just like it. Maybe he like completely topped out at that film, because when I Love Dogs came out, I was like, oh, this sucks. This movie's trash. I hated I Love Dogs. I can't even articulate to you why I hated I Love Dogs. It just did nothing for me, which again, shouldn't be too much of a surprise because I wasn't crazy about The Fantastic Mr. Fox the first time I saw that. Alas, I was hesitant about The French Dispatch because I wanted to see it. I wanted to see a new Wes Anderson movie. There's like a handful of filmmakers whose work I like so much that I'll watch pretty much anything new they do, and he is definitely one of those filmmakers. But I was worried, like, how many more ways can you continue to do a similar thing? How much more can you variate on something we've essentially seen? How many more King songs can you use, you know? But this one does have a really crazy big cast, and like I said, having new actors in the Wes world does make things Wes better. You've got Benicio, Frances McDormand, Jeffrey Wright, Adrian Brody, Tilda Swinton, Timmy Charmander, Lea Seydoux, Owen Wilson, Bill Murray. You've got fucking Ed Norton. I think I saw Bob Balaban shows up, who's been in one of these films before. I saw Henry Winkler. I'm probably forgetting actors because there's just so many cool. Liev Schreiber's in this movie. There's so many really talented actors who all come in for small. Meryl Streep's voice is in it. All these really great names that show up and really play their part to a T and do really excellent little work. And it just makes everything feel so much richer and more textured. I'm not going to attempt to recount like the plot of The French Dispatch to you all, just because there really isn't one, and then also there's too much of one. It is essentially that the movie is structured as if like an issue of The New Yorker came to life. The French Dispatch is an imaginary magazine based out of Ennui, France, like this like made-up town, like a made-up Wes Anderson town, where Bill Murray plays a guy whose name I don't remember because I'm not going to look at my notes of all the cutesy character names that I can't keep track of. But his character is like an editor-in-chief, and it's about his passing, and it's about sort of like the final issue of the magazine. And every piece of the anthology film, every little chapter, is a story from the magazine narrated by the writer who wrote it. So like Tilda Swinton's character is a writer, Owen Wilson's character is a writer, Jeffrey Wright's character is a writer, and you get to see all these different types of stories that you would see in a literary magazine, or that you would see in the paper. So it's like, you know, travelogue stuff, food content, there's a bit of a mystery, there's some political intrigue, there's art reviews, and throughout it you get like this really cool prismatic view of just like this whole little world that is, you know, a Wes Anderson curated world. Wes is one of those filmmakers, not unlike Quentin Tarantino, who has successfully made a style that is just an assemblage of his favorite shit that's become its own brand. I'm reminded of Call Me If You Get Lost, this year's new Tyler the Creator album that feels like a Gangsta Girls tape if it was directed by Wes Anderson himself. Even though there's heavy influences from Wes's films and the way Tyler created the visual world of the new record, the kinship is less that he's just aping Wes Anderson's style, so much as he's borrowing Wes Anderson's ability to create, through seeming sheer force of will, the sense that his idiosyncratic taste can be a style all its own. Something Tyler says a lot in interviews, he talks about being focused on what your shit is. Like, what gets you going? What is the thing you like? And I love art that feels like someone taking like their 10 or so favorite things and just mixing it up and making something out of it. Like Quentin Tarantino does that. It's just like kung fu movies, blaxploitation, spaghetti westerns. Just throw it all in a blender with some references and stuff. He's created something that is thoroughly his own, even though it is heavily, heavily influenced by things that came before it. But when you take all the stuff that you like and then you funnel it back out of yourself, it becomes you, because it's coming through the prism of how you see the world and how you interact with the world. I think Tyler as a musician has done a really fantastic job of doing that and making like a brand for himself that lets people love. And I think Wes Anderson speaks to him the way he does because Wes Anderson did the same thing with his films. Even when Wes is just like doing like credit card commercials or anything random, there's something about the way he tells stories that is so thoroughly passionate, and it's infectious. Like, it really, there's like a confectionery vibe of what he does. It makes everything he does feel kind of like dessert in a way, you know? And it's really, really, it's important to me. It's something that makes me feel really good. Because the truth is, you can't fault a man for doing similar things each time at bat when he's clearly sharpening his skills and strengthening the way he chooses to tell stories. The French Dispatch is essentially a lot sharper and more confident of a movie than he's made before. I feel like the compositions are like more interesting, the camera's movement is more dynamic, there's just more, I don't want to call them risks necessarily because it's 100% a Wes Anderson movie, you're not going to be like thrown for a loop, but everything in the way the story is laid out, how intricate it is, how much it feels like a series of nesting dolls, there is so much to it, so much detail and such a richness and a texture that it really feels it really feels like a master at work. I don't want to call this a masterwork or anything like that. I don't think it's that great. It does feel kind of like a fun throwaway in some sense. But there's something about watching him like iterate on this stuff and like find new ways to do all the stuff that you're used to doing, all the different kind of like tableau dollhouse like shots and stuff. Like, it's fun. It's really fun watching a guy do what he loves to do in a way that is so strong that it makes you love it too. There's just something so vibrant about the vibe of this film that I really miss at the movies. And I don't know if it's the best movie of the year, nor do I have any particularly illuminating thoughts about what the film says about journalism in the post-truth world. And I don't really care. I just really enjoy this, and I think that there's something about it that is missing at the movies. I'm not trying to do this sort of like thing where I'm pretending like anything that is not like a big superhero movie, anything that's indie and artsy is like more important or something. There's lots of indie artsy movies I watch that I can't fucking stand. I just like Wes Anderson's films, and I like that he's one of the few filmmakers who is able to apparently every couple of years make what he wants to make the way he wants to make it in a way that everyone, for the most part, really vibes with. Like, it's there's not a lot of people making films at the moment who are able to be themselves and then at the same time make it something that other people can kind of grab onto. Because even if I don't like the kinks or certain French fashion or whatever pastel color palettes, all the shit that he likes that much, even if those aren't my things, I see in his love of those things my love of my own things. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like watching a Wes Anderson movie, I feel like it's like show and tell. I feel like he comes to class and is just like, here's all my favorite stuff. And I'm like, oh man, that's cool. Those aren't necessarily my favorite things, but I love that you love them. I love that for you, Wes Anderson, and I love you for sharing it with us. I just dig it. I don't know. It's just, something about it is so like nourishing is probably the only way I can really describe it. Like, I went to this movie, and it's hard for me, as I talked about on the channel before as a film critic, just as a person who watches lots of movies, it's hard for me to really turn my brain off, to disengage, just enjoy something, you know? And the reason we go to the movies is to forget life, right? We go to escape. We go to escape our lives, what happens beyond the walls of the auditorium, what happens before we walk in, what's waiting for us when we come out. And not a lot of filmmakers this year have made movies, for me anyway, that feel this immersive. I was so entrenched in this world he created, in visiting ennui in the offices of the French Dispatch, in the stories each of the writers tells. I was in it. By the time the actual director credit came up, it took me a minute to like fully come back to real life. And I love that feeling. It's such a good feeling. It's important. It's like a drug. You know what I mean? That's the reason we go to the movies. It's that feeling of just immersion and escapism. And I feel like everyone keeps thinking that nowadays to have that feeling, you have to have like a big budget sci-fi extravaganza or something. Like, you don't have to go into space or the future or whatever to be immersed in a world. Sometimes you can just be immersed in like a dude with a funny hat talking about like macrons or something. You know what I mean? Like, that's like Wes Anderson's thing. And like in some ways his world building is richer and more lively than some of the stuff that's happening in these big mega budget things. You know, it's just fun. It's fun watching this man make his little doll houses and film them and show them to us, and I love it, and I missed him, and I'm glad it's back. I don't know if The French Dispatch is going to be like one of my top 10 movies of the year, top 5, I don't know. I liked it a lot. It's one of my favorites of the year so far, and I really think you should see it if you have the chance. There's nothing else like it at the theater right now. If you want to see something that feels kind of special, even if it's not that special because you've probably seen his 7 or 8 other movies, I think you should check it out. I think it's really delightful. Those are my thoughts on The French Dispatch. Please see it if you can. If you don't, that's fine. Also, just a quick word. If you don't like Wes Anderson, if you find his style annoying and you think his movies are dumb, don't see it, because you're going to think the same thing. Like, if his shit doesn't jive with you, this will not change your mind. So don't do that. If you hate it, don't go see it because I told you to, because I'm warning you, you might not dig it. Cool? Cool. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any thoughts about this film or any other film or anything at all, you can put them in the comment section below and you can talk to me there. Love talking to you guys. If you have not subscribed yet, this would be a great time to do that. Hit the little bell icon so you get notifications anytime I put out a new video. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you all again for watching. Hope everyone's doing well, staying safe, being good to yourselves and each other. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.